And good morning. Welcome to the Gameweek 16 Net That Haul FPL Matchups show. I'm here with a different face. Well, not a different face. You've been on here before, Craig. It's Man on Pod Craig from the Man on Pod. He's joining me today. So there's gonna be basically lots of tactics, lots of what the hell's going on, lots of what do we do now. And yeah, really looking forward to getting through this. Craig, how are you doing this evening, your time, I guess?
Yeah, I was going to say good morning was an interesting introduction. I've been up for about 12 hours. but yeah, it's good. I obviously like my tactics. I do a little bit by myself on tactics and have some thoughts around it. I haven't really talked at great length about them before with someone else. So yeah, this should be quite exciting to spend a few minutes on each match and breaking things down and seeing where we end up, because don't know about your team, but my team's in a bit of chaos with quite a few opportunities now and quite a few options. Some are obviously more short term, some are more long term. And if I choose to go one of the short term routes, then some of the things we discussed tonight or this morning for you might end up swaying some of my transfers this week. So I'm not committed to any plan yet. So hopefully tonight will at least sort of push me in a direction.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, and if you are catching this on a podcast or watching this later, there are 2 games yet to be played this week, so we're waiting to see what happens there before we really kind of cement our thinking here. But this will be a good discussion to kind of get those thoughts out of the way, the cobwebs out of the way. Funnily enough, I've been up almost 12 hours as well. I was on this professional webinar since 10 a.m. UK time, which is 3 a.m. my time. So it's like 11 a.m. and I feel like it's happy hour already. I need to go get like a margarita or something.
Yeah, sounds good.
It does sound good. And on that note, on things that I guess that ease the pain of life. Although for Mariner, this increases the pain, the suffering, and that we experience in life. We're going to get right into the FPL philosophy. Then we'll say some hello to some people in the chat. Then we'll get right into the matchups. We're trying to make it a pretty relatively short listen today, looking to end around 75 to 90 minutes. Probably end the analysis around 75 minutes. And then take some questions and be out of here within an hour and a half, so people have time to get this episode into their ears before Game Week 16 begins on Saturday. So
I can't promise. I'll try and keep it brief. I can't promise.
You know what? I have to say it so to put the intention out there, but knowing you and I, and when we get into the weeds of the tactics, this is we'll just see. Hopefully, people hang in there with us. Okay, FPL philosophy for Game Week 16 comes to us from Karl Marx. So he said that reason has always existed, but not always in a reasonable form. And I didn't study much Karl Marx in my philosophy studies, to be perfectly honest. So I don't have like an academic kind of background on this quote, like I do some of the other quotes. What I will say is, like, for me personally, sometimes when we're brought new awareness, when we learn something in a game week, for example, right? And it doesn't make sense. It seems like we haven't learned anything because we can't fit it into the reality that we have. So I think we just have to be okay sitting with the discomfort of not knowing sometimes. For one example, as it relates to FPL, is it's Cole Palmer, right? What we don't know is how the return of Nkunku is going to affect his positioning, his role, his production, himself as an FPL asset, penalties, or all of this, right? But we move even without that knowledge, maybe we move in that direction. A lot of people have moved towards Cole Palmer because of the things that we do know. So just because you're encountered with things that seem unreasonable in the moment, have patience and sit there and know that it will fit into the reality as you learn more. So I guess it's a very long-winded way of saying patience.
You've taken me back about 5 years here. Well, first of all, you've taken me back probably about 20 odd years, because I studied sociology when I was a little bit younger. And obviously Karl Marx was an integral part of that, but it's a long time ago now and I can't remember much of it. So don't ask me for any sort of deep analysis of sociology from that block of my life. But in terms of the actual quote, 5 years ago, I would say I played FPL quite differently. I was very, I wasn't so template with my picks, so I would find a reason to pick someone a bit different, and I would have my reasons for it. And if I did discuss it with people, like my circle of FPL sort of friends, if you want to call it that now, is bigger. So then I think my FPL sort of discussions with friends who happen to play FPL. Now my discussion is more regularly with people like yourself, really, who I've met through FPL. And it's a completely different discussion with these sorts of people compared to what I was having 5 years ago with just general friends who maybe didn't take it as seriously as I did. But I was always then suggesting sort of players just from watching football. And it didn't make a lot of sense to them. Why are you picking someone like Morgan Gibbs-White or something like that? Because he plays for a rubbish team. He doesn't really shoot all that much, all these sorts of theories. But I would see something or have an opinion that they disagreed with or couldn't really understand. And often they would even copy me because they saw me as someone that was better at the game than them. So if I was getting that player in, they kind of felt like, well, there's a reason he's doing it. I don't really understand it, but I'll do it. I think Arshavin was quite a good example when he went to Arsenal. I think at the time that season he was there, he was certainly not nailed in that Arsenal team. But he had sort of attacking capabilities and output, and he once scored 4 goals at Anfield. When I happened to captain him by mistake, which is probably one of my greatest FPL achievements, getting 4 goals with an accidental captaincy. But things like that, they would copy me without reason, or for not really understanding the reason, but trusting that my reason was valid enough. I guess that kind of ties into all of this.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does, because you sat with what you know, right? And well, even your friends they didn't understand something, but they would still consider it. They'd be like, it's just because my understanding may be limited towards something. Like, for example, I don't understand why people have Darwin Nunez in their team. Doesn't mean Darwin Nunez is a bad pick. Had to get that in there before the 10-minute mark, or else I don't know, they might kick me off the show. So, but on that note, let's say hi to some of the haulers here in the chat. Let's go from the top. Combe Bugler. Hello, my friend, Fulham fan. Fulham is becoming fun, huh?
Yeah, what else happened to them in the last 3 weeks?
Enjoyable. We got one FDE. Pet's face was something like he took fizz or grabbed a cigar. So this is in reference, for those of you that don't know, obviously, Craig hasn't stopped smiling since the show began. And it's, I don't know what else might be going on in his life, but I know one of the reasons is definitely because he's a Villa fan. So big up for Villa and their fans. We got Ignatius Brian in the chat. Podna, what up, Podnas? Who else is in here? Elron Cupboard. Claire FPL is in here. Harry Dawson, what's up? Harry needs a brace from Sonny or a hat trick. I don't know what Sonny's EO is, because I don't go on that site because I haven't checked my rank yet. But I have Son. I'm hoping it's under 100 so I can, some of those points can count. And we'll say hello as more people come in here. Here we are, 9 minutes in. We're gonna go right to the matchups here for Game Week 16. This is the summary of all the matchups. You can come take a look just to highlight a couple of things here. Brentford, Brentford and what is it? Brentford and Fulham have the 2 highest NetxG values of 2.0 and 2.01 respectively. As a reminder, Brentford is away to Sheffield United, and Fulham host West Ham. So I thought that was really interesting and kind of a real indictment, mostly on West Ham's defense. On the worst performance of the week, or the worst predicted performance of the week, probably not surprising, Burnley away to Brighton, but Brighton conceded a lot. So we'll get to the details of that. But just wanted to show kind of like the extremes here in this overall summary slide. And I also want to highlight 2 things. Actually, one thing is the influence of Bentley. Right now it's at a 1.0. We'll talk about it more when we get to that fixture, but that's obviously a very small sample size, but an incredible start for Bentley. So just something we'll get to when we get to the Wolves Forest matchup. Okay, 10 minutes in. This is the first fixture for us, Craig. Crystal Palace versus Liverpool. Crystal Palace 1.17 NetxG, Liverpool 1.40. The flanks light up for Liverpool, unsurprisingly. Left 3.5 and the zonal matchups in the right 3.8. Interestingly, these aren't like really robust stats compared to other teams in the league. You can tell that by kind of the color. The color of each one is kind of like reds and whites, which is neutral to not so great. As far as like statistically speaking, how do you see this one playing out, Craig?
I would have thought quite a comfortable Liverpool win, if I'm honest, until yesterday. The fact that they've made quite hard work of beating Sheffield United, I can't claim to have watched the whole match. I've seen highlights, but it's a bit of a worry that a team that, in terms, they've got bodies there, Sheffield United, but not particularly, they do quite a lot wrong defensively, even though they've got bodies in the right positions. Crystal Palace, another team who are quite good with getting bodies into defensive shape. I know they've obviously lost the core right now, which isn't going to help them, but they're quite good at, when they need to, getting 6 or 7 men behind the ball and being quite hard to break down. So Liverpool, you normally associate as a team that are quite good at achieving those things, breaking down that deep block and creating chances and things. But the fact they struggled last night, the fact that they may be lacking a little, maybe it was because Tsimikas wasn't playing or something as basic as that they've lost a little bit of wide threat yesterday with him sort of attacking down the outside. I still think they'll win, but maybe it'll be quite low scoring would be my sort of gut feeling on this game. Most famous, to be fair, actually, isn't it, for Darwin Núñez potentially against Joachim Andersen again. If you remember those two battling it out once before, Darwin got sent off, didn't he, when Andersen basically wound him up all game, and then Darwin headbutted him, didn't he? I think, well, put his head into his face or something.
Yeah, like leaned his, like he went to give him a kiss on the cheek, and then they're like, "Me too." No, you can't do that. You can't do it on the pitch anymore. Yeah, that was a very different Darwin, though, right? That was, I think, his first game for Liverpool. Really young, overly excited. You could see that kind of card coming from the beginning. I remember that match clearly, and Joaquin like just played him so well. You could see it coming. I still don't think this is necessarily a good matchup for Darwin specifically because of that. Right. But I like, and this is like, I don't know. I'm starting to think. So I went in on Luis Diaz, right? And I look at the average position map there for Liverpool against Sheffield United before the substitutes were made. And that's exactly how I thought it would be set up. I didn't expect really Tsimikas to play. I thought it would be Joe Gomez. And I thought that actually benefited Luis Diaz because it would isolate him more and not crowd that left side. So I thought he'd be isolated a little bit more than we see him the furthest advanced, right? We see Salah a little bit isolated on the other side. So I thought Salah would be creating for Diaz. And to your point, there wasn't much chance creation in general in that match. I'm just bringing up the stats really quickly. I mean, Liverpool 1.69 XG, and Sheffield United 0.99 XG. It's just not very good. Let me see. So do you think the loss of Tsimikas affected Liverpool's ability to penetrate, or what was going on? And do you think that'll be repeated against Crystal Palace? Like, I was thinking of Salah as captain. Are you still thinking of Salah as captain?
No.
No?
I think they lacked a central presence yesterday, Liverpool, which obviously they got when Darwin came on. You can see there, number 9, he's right up there. But this isn't the sort of game where a central presence is necessarily going to help them. As we said about Andersen and Guehi, I think those two are fairly good at 1v1 defending against that sort of striker. They're, as a defensive partnership, they're probably one of the better ones in the league from a mid-table team. I actually rate both of them individually. Different skill sets and things, but they're both very good. They'd actually be better off Liverpool here, probably playing Gakpo and having him drop a bit deeper and trying to drag them up the pitch and run in behind. Mm-hmm. But I imagine Darwin plays this, having sat on the bench against Sheffield United, and I think they'll just need bodies in the forward line because Palace will defend with quite a solid back four. All 4 of them are I know people might not really rate Joel Ward that highly, and he's quite a basic defender, but he's quite diligent with what he has to do and things like that. So I think man v man, I think Palace will stand up to Liverpool defensively. I say with a little bit of protection in front as well. Say no Decore, but they've still got Jefferson Lerma and thing, who's quite hard working in that role. So I don't think chances will necessarily come easily to Liverpool here. And at the other end, they've obviously got the backup goalkeeper in goal who didn't cover himself in glory in the Fulham game. So if Palace do get 1 or 2 chances on the counter attack, even though they're the home team, will one of those go in? Could be a decent game for like Odds and Edward. Someone like that might poach something on the break, or at least say if he's against Simicast, if they do let Simicast get forward, could at least say find a little bit of extra space down that side. He'll come in off the right, won't he, and towards Van Dijk. But yeah, maybe 1-1 would be my prediction here for something like this. I think Liverpool probably will manage to find a way to score, but I wouldn't be captaining anyone from this game, I don't think, or bringing anyone in with a free transfer, because Luis Diaz is obviously we'll get to it that Mbeumo is injured, or Bumo, however you want to call him. There's plenty of options. Luis Diaz is an option for that. Moving forward, Liverpool's fixtures aren't too bad. He was very good on the weekend's game. I'd say I don't know what his stats were yesterday, but in the weekend's game, his stats were quite impressive. So he's an option, but I think there's probably someone with more upside this week than him even.
Yeah, let's see. Diaz, his stats weren't great, I guess. 0.11 XA. I don't think he had any shots, so no XG. But like I do agree he's played well. And I think Joel Ward is basic. The basics are covered and they're solid. But if there's one thing, Joel Ward can get turned. His hips are not obviously very loose or mobile, so he can get turned quite quickly. And I think Luis Diaz is exactly the type of player that can do that. So I still like that matchup for Luis Diaz. But I have to say, after what I've seen in the past 2 matches on the blanks, it definitely I'm with you. Not bringing any player in for this game, and also not captaining anybody in this game. Totally with you.
It depends what you think as well, in the sense that is he better off being more isolated Diaz to get more space, more opportunity to play 1v1 against an opponent, or is he better off having more bodies around him? Simicast as a decoy, maybe going outside him, maybe he's got the opportunity to play 1-2s with someone inside him and things like that. Does that improve his goal threat and attacking capabilities, having an attacking wing, a fullback, and more central players to come and support him? Or is he better off just being left? Because Sheffield United obviously play wing backs 3 at the back. Isolated over that side, it's probably not so great when you've got a right centre back and a right wing back sort of to help cover him. And the wing back can fully cover Diaz because he hasn't got to worry about no attacking left back there. So it feels like, not that I'm a better manager than Jurgen Klopp tactically, but it does feel like here that he's maybe got it wrong. Maybe he'd be better off playing Gakpo and Gomez in this game, and he would have been better off playing Simicast and Darwin in the Sheffield United game almost.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like to attack a back 3 with a player like Darwin, you're using Darwin to split the lines, right? To push that back 3 as deep as possible. And then you get players. I thought against Sheffield United, all 4 of them should have started. Like Gakpo should have been coming into that hole and gone heavy when you take even though like you make a defensive substitution, right? Endo comes on and Endo scores a goal and stuff, but McAllister's injury was a perfect opportunity to kind of like put pressure on, and he didn't do that. And I thought that was at least from an FPL perspective, it's concerning, right? So
they've tried him as an 8 as well, haven't they? Because like when they signed Wijnaldum, I know I'm going back a few years and a bit off topic, but when they signed Wijnaldum, he was a 10 really, a very attacking player, and then they converted him to be a bit more of a disciplined sort of 8 on that left side. I wouldn't be surprised if sort of medium term Gakpo ends up maybe being similar and adapting a similar role to what they got from Wijnaldum. And let's say they could have played him and Szoboszlai against Sheffield United. He wouldn't have really damaged them that much, right? Especially if they're playing the extra defensive left back there, not Simicast.
Exactly.
But rotation, I guess they didn't want to keep playing, give Darwin too many minutes if they've got Jota out and things like that. So
yeah, I guess if you give Darwin too many minutes, people might start saying he's nailed. I got 2 in 20 minutes. Okay, I think I'm done. But yeah, we agree. Darwin owners definitely hold almost certain to start, and definitely could get something. I'd like to see Salah hold the ball a little bit more and draw the whole team shift over. But yeah, we'll see. I'd be interested to know in the chat if those of you that have Darwin, do you have Darwin, Craig? No. Those that do have Darwin, what are you thinking? Are you looking to get rid? Are you going to hold for now as you prepare for 18? I'm curious to know that. I think we can move on to the next one. Covered Liverpool pretty extensively.
Just quickly, I would play Simicast this week if I owned him, because he's obviously quite well owned and people will still be holding him. It's not a great week for many of the popular defenders, is it? There's a lot of them that are away, maybe not with great fixtures. Simicast has probably got as much chance of points as most other defenders have this week. So I'd probably prioritise playing him over, if you're looking at a centre-back from another sort of middling team, I don't know who that would be, even over someone like Gabriel this week. I think I'd rather play Simicast than Gabriel, I think, if I was given the choice.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely have Simicast starting, but that's also because I'm still holding cash. I have Lascelles starting, crying out loud, but we'll get there. Brighton versus Burnley. Brighton home 1.78 NetxG. Burnley 0.85, one of the lowest of the week. Brighton's central matchup is just firing, and I know a lot of people are talking about Evan Ferguson after he didn't start right against Brentford. And then with that 4.2 central matchup for those on the podcast, and then add to that, if you add the shots goal predictor to that central matchup, we're looking at, what is it? It's a 49% chance of 2 or more goals for Brighton. So it looks like a really good matchup on that front. How do you see this one, and how do you see Brighton in particular? Are they just utterly dysfunctional, or do you see them settling into something?
No, not settling into something. They're clearly a work in progress, right? People, I think in the past, they've been so good when it comes to replacing a player that's left the club. And it always feels like for like, Basuma left, in came Caicedo, things like that. And the team didn't really suffer for it. But Caicedo and McAllister both going, who were pretty much the 2 main central midfielders last year. I don't really feel like they've found an immediate solution, not helped obviously by a collection of injuries and the fact they've had to play Europe and all sorts of. It feels like every game they're trying to play a central midfielder at fullback just to try and get through the game. Whether it's Milner, Hinshelwood, Gross, they're not fullbacks, right? They do a job there for odd moments, but so I do feel a bit bad for them. They're probably my second favourite team in the league after Villa, but it's a work in progress. This game though could be a battering. I would have Evan Ferguson up front if I was on a free hit this week. Obviously, one of the good things about the free hit is that you don't have to keep the player long term, and I think that's the problem with Ferguson, that you can never hold him for 4 or 5 weeks because you might only get 2 appearances out of him, and we can't be dealing with that frustration. But for a one-off week here, assuming he's fit, I don't know what the latest condition sort of update is from him, but Pedro was up front against Brentford. I feel like they've got centre backs that can be bullied a little bit, Burnley, and he's got that physique and profile that could really cause them issues. And the fact Burnley also, like Koleosho's injured, he went off in the first half. In their game, I think companies come out and now said it's possibly most of the season for him. He is a bit of a sort of a one-man outlet for them at the moment. So without him, I'm not quite sure where they'll create anything from, because it's almost felt like recently you just give him the ball and not almost see what happened. It's not been quite that one-dimensional, but it's felt like there's a pressure on him to do something. They pass it around like quite nicely. And obviously, a company team that have been built around territory and possession, they try and do that. But eventually, there has to be some output, and basically give it to him. So I don't know if they've got a replacement to do that role within the squad. From what I've seen from most of their players so far, I don't think they really have. So a battle of territory, in it, a battle of possession, this game's going to be. Brighton will win it, win the possession and win the game. But this could be a 3 or a 4-0 here. Well, maybe 4-1 because Brighton don't keep clean sheets, right? So we'll say 3-1, 4-1. But I think it could be a bit of a battering.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends what is company going to instruct his team to go to chase those balls, to chase the? We look at the average position for Brighton before the substitutes are made, and you can see the kind of like the build out of the back, spread, get big and build out of the back and just push people forward with the like what is it, 8 of the 11 there in the attacking half. It was obviously it was a bit of that game's always, against Brentford, is always a bit of a wild game, but if I think company could do something, he's like to pack the middle before. If he keeps everyone in the middle, he's gonna in the center like he has this season, he's gonna get beat wide, right? But if he goes chasing wide balls, then Brighton will come through the middle, and I think that kind of like conundrum is what's really kind of lifting the potential for Brighton here, especially for Ferguson. If we look at the average position map, both of them for Burnley and right where Ferguson would be, Burnley's center backs are placed so wide; they're so far apart from each other, and I just think not just Ferguson that can beat him from there, but even like kind of late runners like Matoma could make a diagonal run through there. So, but again, are we buying Brighton? I can't buy them with what I've seen.
No, I had Matoma for a couple of weeks before, and he didn't play as much as I hoped. And then when he did play, he sort of disappointed. I think some of his underlyings weren't too bad, but he didn't deliver on the underlyings. Yeah, I think they're annoying this year. They'll be up there again, top 5, top 6 in terms of probably total goals for the season. But just because they're probably the biggest rotators in the league, should we say, in terms of who's going to play, we don't really need them. I think it's Stupinan when he comes back, I think is a discussion. But apart from him, we're not at the Matoma price point. There's other options. At the Ferguson price point, there's other options. It just feels like the upside of these players isn't super high, that it's worth the risk. At least with Darwin, I know we're talking about him again, but there is a crazy upside there if he plays and does well. I don't really feel like the Brighton players give you that upside. Like you pick Matoma, you're not sure if he's going to play, and then if he does play, he's still not guaranteed to do anything.
Yeah.
But I probably would punt a couple on a free hit this way. I think Matoma could be quite a good mismatch against Vitinho if he plays. So I'm still not convinced by him as a right back. He feels like a midfielder who's sort of in some sort of he's being asked to play a slightly different role. So yeah, I think Matoma could have a field day 1v1 against him if that sort of mismatch happens. And then I say if they play a presence through the middle, and as you say, then deliver some late runners, someone like Pedro as a 10. Buonanotte played, didn't he, yesterday? But it's there for Brighton. So I think it'll be a comfortable home win. I just need to see a bit more of Burnley without Koleosho to see what they'll do. Because the one criticism I will have of company so far, I think he's done fairly well, and I think they've been a bit unlucky to be as low as they are. I don't necessarily think they're one of the 3 worst teams, but there's been a bit of stubbornness, I think, about how he sets his team up. Obviously, he's come through the Pep Guardiola school of coaching, right, where a team's adapt to you and you don't change your sort of philosophy really for what the other team are going to do. Unfortunately for Burnley, they haven't got the players to really dominate a game like Man City did. But maybe company's still hoping that his tactics will sort of show off his sort of player deficiency, if you want to call it that. So maybe there's been some signs lately that he's becoming a bit more sort of defensive minded and a bit more adaptable in how he's going to set his team up. But it feels like for now they play too open because company wants them to play a certain way and he's not going to change for an opponent. Until that really starts to change consistently, I think they'll constantly be sort of prone to letting quite a few goals in against certain caliber of opposition, of which Brighton's probably one of them. So yeah, I'll go on record and say I think 3 or 4 goals for Brighton in this.
I don't disagree, but I do think, despite the NetxG being lower than 1, and who knows, this could be Brighton's first clean sheet of the season, but certainly without Burnley not having Koleosho, but Amdoni is kind of coming to the fore little by little, and I think he's offering something really interesting. I just don't know how they're going to create for him without Koleosho. Like they had that kind of partnership going on, right? And on that left-hand side, and without that, yeah, this is a resounding Brighton win, and I wouldn't recommend anyone necessarily All right, we're gonna move on to the next fixture here, but before we do, I'll take a moment to say we have about 30 people in the live chat, but only 2 likes. So let's get those likes up so we can become more popular and find more people and find more friends. That's what it's all about here for us. So smash that like for us.
We look like brothers now. I'll turn my hat around so we look like brothers. That'll get some more likes.
This is the cap episode. It's the captaincy. All right, next one here. I'm interested to talk about this one. Manchester United hosting Bournemouth. Interested to know what you thought about Manchester United against Chelsea. Not sure if you had a chance to watch that one. I just saw highlights of that because I'm not watching Manchester United for a long time, for a while anyway. So I chose some other games instead. NetxG sees Manchester United 1.62, Bournemouth 1.51, so quite even here. Manchester United, their 1.62 is kind of elevated by the creativity metric, which is, again, the zonals that are baked into that creativity metric, so that's why you see it at 1.87. Now, the expected data and the shots data is significantly lower, so just kind of depends on how you value stats or which stats you value more, to add a little bit of context to those numbers. And what else for Bournemouth? So that the Bournemouth, that's a game one of the games I did watch, and I'm looking forward to talking about Bournemouth a little bit because they are. I think we saw the influence of wingbacks finally get involved in Iraola's system. He used wingbacks at Rayo Vallecano. And we saw, I think it was, who was it? I'm going to look him up. I'm pretty sure it was, where is he? Yep, Milos Kerkez, right? We saw Milos Kerkez bombing down that left flank a couple of times. That's just a little taste of what we're going to see from Iraola. So while we're seeing the results and the performances get better, we're not really seeing his full system yet because the wingbacks haven't gotten totally involved yet. Right now, it's been if they possess high up the field long enough, then Kerkez will get forward. I'm sure what he's looking to see is kind of like Sinisterra Kerkez partnership, kind of opening space or like holding the ball and the left creating for the right. So that left side Sinisterra and Kerkez maybe creating for Semenyo and Solanke. Give me your thoughts on Manchester United. How did you watch highlights or something from that match?
Yeah, the Chelsea game, I see most of it, to be honest. And they won the game really by playing quite direct into midfield. So Chelsea, I know we're talking about Chelsea here, but Chelsea had quite a small midfield. Enzo, Caicedo, things like that. They're not the most physical and big players. And obviously, Onana likes to be quite direct with his movements. I think Man United are caught in two minds at the moment. I think Ten Hag ideally wants them to play out from the back. Bought a goalkeeper that was more proficient at doing that than David De Gea was, but has really been let down by who's been available. No Luke Shaw, no Lisandro Martinez, players like this that are quite pivotal to being able to do that. And with the likes of Maguire and the likes of Wan-Bissaka and things like that, I think they've struggled to really get out from the back. And so they've ended up playing a bit more direct, but it suited them against Chelsea because, say, they won the midfield battle. They had energy in there with McTominay and Amrabat was there. No Rashford, obviously, was criticised the weekend for being quite lazy and was left out. They got a bit more work rate, I think, out of Anthony and Garnacho than what Rashford's been giving them. So they had an easy route up the pitch into the opposition's half, I thought, against Chelsea, just by being quite direct. And then they had work rate and energy to make life difficult. And McTominay, obviously very good as a sort of second phase attacker that can attack the box from deep and times his run really well to identify space. Could that happen against Bournemouth? Lewis Cook's not a particularly big guy either. Obviously, Man United are at home, so will the fans tolerate a more direct strategy? Maybe they would right now because they just want to win games. So will they play the same team? Logic would say they'll play the same team. It's probably as good as they've played all season yesterday. And there's no real reason to make changes. So I'd probably go with the same 11, assuming they're all available again. I don't think there was any suspensions picked up or anything. But then a Bournemouth improved enough that's going to make life difficult for Manchester United. I predicted them before the season started to finish in the top half, Bournemouth, basically on account of the manager. he'd been so good and so organised and so structured in Spain. I kind of felt like he'd be like a breath of fresh air to them, a big upgrade tactically on what they'd had. Obviously, with the likes of Villa, it just worked straight away under Unai Emery. As soon as he came in and started to share his methods, Villa's results improved. It's been a bit slower progress for Bournemouth, isn't it? It's taken, 8-10 game weeks for things to start to register, start to click and things to improve. But they're clearly a lot better in the last 3-4 game weeks. And they've got a lot of attacking players that can be a threat. All these attacking midfielders, the Sinisteras, the Semenyos, players like that. They've got quite a nice collection of these sorts of players now at Bournemouth. And around the Man United defence, it's quite slow at times. But obviously, we know about Maguire's not got a big turning circle and struggles with pace around him. I definitely think Bournemouth will score. It's just how Man United play, which feels a bit more unpredictable right now. I think Bournemouth, say we've had 3 or 4 games of a certain way of playing that's clearly being effective. Man United, I don't think we can get excited on the back of one good game. But there was enough in the game yesterday to be a bit more encouraged by what they might do here.
Yeah, I agree. I think United showed some purpose, I guess is what I would call it, and intention, and Chelsea made them look good a little bit. But just to finish up on Bournemouth and Iraola specifically, you were talking about his system. If we look, I love their, like, as we see their kind of system start to work, the average position maps are telling us more and more. So if we look at the first average position map before the subs are made, that's the third image there from left to right. On the right hand side, Iraola has, if you look at the way they're set up, right, it's Justin Kluivert's playing the 10 and Semenyo's to his right. And Ryan Christie has been moved back into like the double pivot position when he's been playing more of an attacking role this season. But what happens is Kluivert moves over to play with Semenyo, and then Ryan Christie, the number 10, moves into that number 10 position, right? So there's this kind of like shift towards the right, where they shift most of their personnel to the right-hand side, and while still blocking the middle with Lewis Cook will just sit there. Sinisterra tucks inside. Lewis Cook sits there. Christie moves up into the 10, and that's the kind of cue to release the wingback. If you see that kind of movement positioning, so the Kirkes will get released in that way. And I think I'm really curious to see if which side creates more for the other. If it's the right side, kind of like passing it up with Semenyo and Kluivert, or if that side is just there to kind of hold it and release the wing back. And I'm also curious to see if they'll do the same thing on the left-hand side, because like Kluivert could pair up with Sinisterra, right? And then it'll be Semenyo in space. So we're starting to see Iraola's tactics really take shape, and I find Bournemouth one of the most interesting teams in the division right now.
Could be a good one for Kirkes as well, because I say Man United's wide players aren't the most diligent defensively. So if he sneaks off and gets away from Anthony or Garnacho, whoever's over that side, then Wan-Bissaka's a very good 1v1 defender. But again, he can be a bit caught out by like a ball across the box or something. He switches off sometimes and someone can nick in front of him. If Kirkes has got full license down that left side to attack the back post, it's possible he won't be tracked by the Man United winger, and Wan-Bissaka might lose him in that moment. So possibly some output for him. And I don't know what his goal threat's like. I haven't really looked at his numbers, to be honest. But if he is prepared to sort of get in the box in the same way like Mikalenko does for Everton, if they can get Kirkes to play like that sort of role, this is probably quite a good game for him, because Man United's right side is not the best defensively for sort of remaining switched on and paying attention to runners and things like that.
So I don't think his stats are there yet. He's only been kind of getting forward in the past couple of games. So remains to be seen. And Dalot started against Chelsea, so it could be Wan-Bissaka. If it is Wan-Bissaka, then I think I would suggest that it'll probably come from the other side. That the creativity will probably come from the Semenyo side, getting in behind Luke Shaw and targeting. Was it Lindelof at left center back?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah. or whoever is there. But one thing we do know is whoever is there is worse than Varane, who looks like he's about to be sold. But I think honestly, like, this could be my return to watching Manchester United. I would be curious to see how this one plays out, and I'll be curious to see if Ten Hag has a read on Iraola's tactics and see how he responds to that.
It probably might hinge more on how Iraola views Man United right now. Say in Spain, he was very good at managing the big games. Now, historically, this would be a big game for Bournemouth playing at Old Trafford, but based on current performance and current league positions and things, Manchester United are playing more like a mid-table team now than sort of a team challenging for the top four. So will he see this game as one where he has to set up quite defensively and the way he did when he used to play against the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid, or will he set this up as one where actually we can be aggressive here and play more on the front foot than that? And I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest, how they'll view this.
I don't either. That's why I have a lot of questions, I guess, more than answers and recommendations about this game. But I do like Solanke. If you own Solanke, I bet there's something in this one for him.
I've got the exact money to turn Cameron Archer to him, and I keep thinking about it with Game Week 18 in mind as well. It's one of my, even Semenyo, to be fair, is pretty much the same price as Archer, but that feels like a little bit of a sideways move that doesn't achieve a great deal. But Solanke could be decent upside on Archer. No doubt he scores more points, but it's just whether that's the best use of my disposable cash at the moment is to do that. So I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, Solanke has the goal involvement, right? But it's the upgrade. What is Semenyo's 4.6?
Yeah.
Yeah, the upgrade from Archer to Semenyo for the 0.1 is it's massive. Like when you're factoring value into it. So I get that dilemma. I think you gotta if that's how you want to spend your disposable coin there, then yeah, you have to go Solanke, I think. But that is the question, right? Is that where you invest your funds, or do you save them for upcoming Chelsea fixtures, or like I mean, and we'll get to those. Things feel very complicated right now in terms of transfers.
I think I just want to see more goals from Solanke. At the moment, he feels a bit like a board who's up front for Bournemouth. He's there to facilitate other things. He's a presence. He can get them up the pitch. He's an outlet for when they need to get the ball forward quickly. But it's his job, in the same way that Benzema's used to be for Real Madrid, it's his job to engage defenders, sort of take them away. And then all of the sort of other willing runners around him are the ones that actually run into the space that he's made. Like Benzema was the master at it for Real Madrid with the likes of Ronaldo. He'd make the space for Ronaldo to run into. Solanke kind of feels like he's still a bit like that in my eyes. I might not be completely accurate with that sort of analysis, but it feels like with the likes of Semenyo, with the likes of Tavernier, with the likes of Sinistera, almost Solanke's job is to make space for them. And he will score goals because he's a presence in an attacking part of the team. But he's not proven to me yet that he's liable to get sort of 15 goals a season. And I think I want to see that from him before I probably buy him, is where my head's at with it.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I would wonder, like, what you thought of Solanke 3 weeks ago.
No, my opinion hasn't changed. The fact that Bournemouth have got better, my opinion of him is still the same.
Because I think he's, in the past 2 games, he's gone from, you're right, like more from I think before that he was more goal scorer, and now he's become enabler. And I don't know what the rhyme or reason is to that. Could be tactical, could be situational, it could be to add a different element, and I think we're still learning about Bournemouth. But yeah, we'll move on to the next fixture here, and we'll pick up the pace a little bit. We're 45 minutes in and hitting our 4th fixture here. Yeah, I mean, this Sheffield hosting Brentford. Obviously, we're gonna focus all of this conversation on Brian Mbomo's injury. Brentford 2.0 NetxG away to Sheffield United. Sheffield United 1.2. The zonals aren't really lining up for anywhere. Maybe the right side for Brentford. That's to be expected with Mbomo. But Mbomo rolled his ankle. I saw it when I saw it. It looked like a grade 2. I haven't seen any reports, any updates. I don't know if he's had a scan.
He's
but
been
obviously
confirmed definitely out of this game, and it's weeks. It apparently looked
Yeah.
nasty, is the quote I think from Thomas Frank. They're saying weeks at the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's just go. I don't think we even need to really talk about this game. I don't think anyone's buying any Brentford players. We're certainly selling Brentford. So let's focus maybe the conversation on selling Mbumo and some of the targets that we're looking for, keeping in mind several things. Somebody mentioned here, Ignatius Bryant said, mentioning the AFCON Asia Cup coming up. We have the Gameweek 18 blank. We have Chelsea's changing fixtures. Who are you selling Mbumo for?
Probably 4 players in my head. I would say probably Cole Palmer I already own, and Anthony Gordon I can't have because I've got too many Newcastle. So those 2 are the obvious downgrades. I do have money, and probably Bowen is my favourite option right now, just for the security of minutes. And I think he fits into my squad structure quite well and plays in the weeks I really need a good fixture. And we'll talk about it more maybe next week, but I'm still quite keen to really consider a bench boost in game week 17, and Bowen fits that box. He's at home to Wolves. So if I got him in, he would be good for that. So he's probably at the moment who I'm thinking is number 1 target. Raheem Sterling, so double Chelsea midfield, is in the discussion, but very unpredictable right now, Chelsea. I think you kind of know what you're going to get from Bowen. I don't think you feel like you know that from Sterling yet. So lukewarm on him, but the fixtures are really good. I can get to Bruno Fernandes. Obviously, we've already gone through Man United, and is he reliable right now either? But it's quite a nice differential, it feels like, at the moment, to go back to him. And then there's Hwang, who's obviously a bit cheaper as well, scoring goals quite continuously at the moment, and the team's setting up for him and Cunha down that left side to do well. So probably them 4. The other option is to go to an Aston Villa player. I'm pretty sure like Review and places like that are suggesting Aston Villa midfielders. Douglas Luiz, someone like that, probably is coming out quite well in those sorts of analysis. So me personally, I think I've got the money to upgrade him to Bowen. And on the basis that most have just sold Bowen because they got him in, then they obviously missed the game and we weren't sure how long he was out for, they probably sold him again. Yeah, the fact he's playing through the middle, the fact he's a bit of a talisman, the fact his minutes seem quite secure when he's fit, and West Ham have good fixtures where I need them to play him. He's not the sort of player I normally like owning because I don't particularly think West Ham are very good, so I tend to try and avoid players from teams I don't like. But I think circumstance might push me in that direction right now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Going back in on West Ham. I've been writing about how West Ham are just atrocious from open play for several weeks now. And so it's this weird cognitive dissonance. Like Bowen, I had Bowen before he got hurt, and I thought he was a great pick, and I was really happy with him. And then he got hurt, and I sold him. And I don't think I can bring myself to bring him back because West Ham are so shit from open play.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, like, I think what's that?
It pains me to think about it because I don't like teams from or players from teams that I don't particularly rate tactically. Yeah. And West Ham are sort of near the bottom of the list, I think, for teams that I don't particularly rate. But I say a midfielder playing up front with reasonable fixtures. Possibly, is he on pens? I think he probably is. He's kind of pushing me that way because there's less options than you think. It felt like a couple of weeks ago there was 20, 25 midfielders that are all like possibles. And maybe there still is. Maybe we could look a bit wider at like Brennan Johnson or someone like that as well. Or I say there's Leon Bailey's flying right now for Aston Villa. Maybe we could look at players like that. But those players just feel a bit punty. Sterling feels a bit punty, but in a different way to like Leon Bailey. Bowen kind of just feels a bit safe. And maybe that's an indictment. And now I'm playing the game this year that I need to just be a bit more adventurous or something. But
yeah, let's play that game a little bit here, and let's go through some names that maybe aren't being mentioned. I think Douglas Luiz is one, but want to talk about him more when we get to Villa.
Yeah.
I want to understand him a little bit more. But some names like Odegaard, for example. Any interest?
I guess they could be now. I've got 3 Arsenal, so I can't do it. But for someone else, yes.
Like if I can't get to Saka, for example.
Clearly, the numbers have picked up, haven't they? The last 2 game weeks. I still think he's playing too deep since Havertz is in the team, and that impacts his output in my eyes. So I probably wouldn't go there.
Okay. We'll just do them kind of quick fire. I'm going to push back on that point and talk about Odegaard's deeper positioning when we get to the Arsenal fixture. You mentioned Hee-chan Hwang. I think maybe one of the top picks. But let me see his. Yeah, fixtures are decent.
Okay.
Luis Diaz.
Yeah, in the discussion. At the moment.
Discussion there.
Yeah.
Who else we got? And going down, that's kind of it, I guess.
I think
Garnacho 4.7 is an option.
There is a temptation to go down because it might allow you something like Trippier from one of your defenders. If at the moment you've got a block midfield, a block defense of like 5 million as your like most expensive, and you're thinking, how can I get to Trippier? By downgrading Mbeumo to saving $1 million or something, coming down to Hwang, that might be enough to get you Trippier. So if you're looking at it from that perspective and 2 or 3 moves, I don't hate it.
Yeah, that's a good point. See it in a bigger context, I think is the point. Don't see it as a midfield transfer. See, kind of expand that a little bit. Cool. Well, we'll move on here to the next matchup. And as we move on here, just a quick reminder for those in the chat, if you do have questions, drop them in there. I'm starring them as we go, and we'll come back to all the questions at the end here. There are some, like if they're acutely relevant to what we're talking about in the moment, then I'll throw it up here and we'll deal with them in the moment. But otherwise, we will come back. Good point, Ignatius. Hwang has 4 yellow cards and Asia Cup coming up, so maybe not the best option. Thank you for that. If I go Mbeumo to Garnacho, I could go Ben White to Trent. So that's something I'll be thinking of. Anyway, next one here. Wolves Forest. Wolves hosting Forest. Forest 0.99 NetxG. Wolves 1.59 on the back of the expected XG metric there. Let's see, nothing really popping out here. Kind of 1 or 2 goals likely for Wolves. What do you see in terms of, I guess, both of these teams missing kind of like a key piece, right? We have Wolves missing Neto, who is getting healthy, and Hwang is kind of stepping into the role of kind of a I don't know. I'm going to call him impact player because he's not necessarily the talisman because his movement is dictated by Cunha's movement, but he is the impact player and instigator of chaos. And then we have Forest, who are obviously missing Awoni. They insist on trying to play the same way. I love the average position maps when they go. Forest is they're chasing Fulham, right? So they go. They make the subs and they go from this one formation. It stays the same formation. They don't get any more penetration. They just expand. So that I think Forest they're having trouble penetrating, and this will be kind of a theme. There's another team that we might be surprised is having trouble penetrating, but yeah. How do you see kind of key assets in this one? I mean, we're looking at probably just probably not bringing any players in, but what do you see the prospects for players like Hwang and maybe Cunha? Maybe some people have Cunha.
Before Forest got battered by Fulham yesterday, I would have put this down as a possible 0-0 game. I think both teams might struggle to score in this. Forest were looking quite resilient on the whole until the last couple of game weeks. They seem to have completely fallen apart. I don't know if they've lost interest and lost faith with the manager. I can't see it being too long before he's gone, if I'm being honest now. And have the players got that sort of fight and determination to fight for him? It's not the first time he's been sort of under pressure in the last sort of season and a half, is it, Cooper? So at the moment, it feels like they've down tools a little bit, and they were very poor yesterday in the first half. So that makes me feel like it's there for the taking for Wolves if they can create things. So as you say, he's providing goals, isn't he, Wang? And that's his role to sort of, where Neto's creative, he's more of the provides the end product, the final touch on those sorts of bits of creativity. Have they got enough creativity to breach Forest is the question. My gut feeling is no. I think they struggle a bit for creativity, Wolves, without Neto, and haven't really replaced him. But it's just how bad will Forest be? They need to show some heart, obviously, after yesterday. It was really bad against Fulham. Can they pick themselves back up for that?
Yeah, I don't have much to add here. But what I will say is that I do think this will be a tactical battle. I think tactics wins out in this one, and I would tip my hat to Gary O'Neill. But yeah, again, the prospects of like AFCON and Asia Cup looming, kind of putting us off key players like Hwang. I wonder what the impact of the loss of Hwang will be on Cunha, and if Sasha Kalajdzic will come in, if they change the way they play. Curious to see how Wolves adapt. Here we go. Aston Villa hosting Arsenal. Villa on their giant killer spree. And NetxG agrees. Aston Villa 1.3 or Arsenal 1.36 NetxG. Aston Villa 1.7 on the back of that massive expected data metric. And just as I want to bring that up just a little bit. So here's the thing, like the Villa, right? They have in the last 6 games, they have 12.5 XG non-penalty at home in the last 6 home games, which is fantastic, obviously, and remarkable. Their XG on target, not exactly a measure of quality of shots. It's a better measure for goalkeepers, but just loosely speaking is even more. It's almost at 17. So they add XG to their shots. But then what's really impressive is from the 12.5 XG and that expected shots data takes into account goals scored as well as an indicator of form. So you could have low XG, but many goals scored, and that's certainly the case. Most goals scored at home this season, Aston Villa, 20 goals scored in the last 6 home games. And NetxG thinks you guys are going to do the same to Arsenal. What do you think?
I think it's very lineup dependent here for Villa. Obviously, the result yesterday was amazing, but let's not kid ourselves. Man City were quite hamstrung by playing about 7 defenders in the starting lineup. They had Akanji and Stones basically playing holding midfield. Rico Lewis playing as one of the sort of more attacking mids. They were sort of let down by the squad. Grealish, Rodri were both suspended. Doku injured, things like that. So we played them at a good time yesterday. We obviously still played very well, but I'm not getting overly carried away by the fact we just beat Man City, because we beat a very depleted Man City. But we couldn't have done any more in terms of being impressive, and the way we played was very good. We haven't changed a lot now for the last 2 games. So Diaby obviously benched for 2 games. Matt Cash benched for 2 games. And there seems to be a preference right now to play Tielemans sort of more as a number 10 in the role Diaby was playing before. That's now meant that we can play a more genuine wide player out wide. So Leon Bailey's come in and done very well doing that, which will be quite pivotal for this game, because Zinchenko is not a particularly good left back, I don't think. So if we can... the form Bailey's in, he has to carry on playing. He's historically had been quite injury prone, so 3 games in a week is probably pushing it with him. But I say the form he's in, I think you have to just keep playing him right now. And again, I think he could have a really good game against Zinchenko here. So I think he plays. So can we keep the same team again? If he wants to change it, he's obviously got the chance to put Cash back in at fullback and do something. He's got the chance to try and give Jacob Ramsey a start. He came on again yesterday. And are these players capable of putting 3 strong performances in a week? We was quite resilient against Bournemouth. Then obviously there was a big shift yesterday against Man City that potentially could have drained everyone. Can they recover and be back on it again for this game? Personally, I would probably risk it and play the same team again. I think it's really hard to drop anyone based on performance against Man City yesterday. And Arsenal play very similarly to Man City. Obviously, Arteta's another Guardiola disciple, so there'll be a lot of similarities between the two teams. So if this works so well against Man City, then maybe our tactics will expose Arsenal in similar ways. Arsenal will just have better players in the better positions, right? They'll have Declan Rice in midfield. They'll have Odegaard in midfield and things like that, which Man City didn't have that sort of luxury yesterday. So I'm not so confident. I thought we'd beat Tottenham, and we did. I thought we'd struggle against Bournemouth, and we did. And I thought we'd beat Man City, and we did. This game, I'm not so confident. I actually think Arsenal will probably win this. But we'll give up a good fight. It could be like 2-1 or something. We'll be well in the game. But I feel like the end of a hard week, Arsenal being in the form there, and it'll obviously be buoyed as well by the fact they just scored in the 98th minute to win a game they should have lost.
So we're getting a bunch of questions in. I'm going to throw them up here for you, and because they're all super relevant. And you know, first one, Clint, is Bailey nailed? And there was Ignatius Bryan also says, Bailey anyone? So that could be if he's at 5.5 million midfielder, could be an option from Mbomo.
Yeah, nailed is dangerous. And obviously the thing with getting a Villa player, and you want the one that's going to play game week 18 against Sheffield United, because there's obviously the blank. He's always going to be one of those that are on the block. There's 7 or 8 Villa players that when they're fit, they're going to play. Pau Torres is going to play every game. Martinez is going to play every game. Douglas Luiz will play every game. Kamara will play every game. Watkins will play every game. McGinn will play every game. Anyone outside of that little group, I think, are always prone to a little bit of rotation. And you're almost playing week to week with a lot of the other players. Bailey's red hot right now, and it wouldn't make sense to drop him. But I say he's injury prone. He's been injury prone since we've owned him. I'm obviously not part of the staffing at Villa to know how his current fitness is and whether he can play 4 or 5 games in 20 days or whatever we're going to be asking of him. But at the moment, he's been our most dangerous attacker, I think, for 3 games in a row. So I don't think we can really drop him right now. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was benched in game week 18.
So what? So is it a form play or is it a tactics-based play regarding Bailey? And I'll ask you the same question about Cash.
I think it's both right now. I think he came in to the team as a tactics-based play, but now he's doing so well, it's become a form-based play. I think he's good like that, Emre, that he doesn't really change things when players are doing well. So Luca Digne, I would still argue, is second choice left back to Moreno. But Digne's been playing so well for the last 6 game weeks. Moreno's now back fit, but Digne's still in the team. I think the back four with the other parts of the back four, so Konsa, Carlos and Torres, is our first choice of the 3 defenders with Moreno. But Carlos was injured for I think all of September. Matt Cash came in at right back. Konsa moved across to centre back, and that structure was working really well for a set period of time. Boubacar Kamara was playing a bit deeper and helping ball progression, things like that, and that allowed Cash and Digne, sort of unusually for Emre, to play 2 attacking fullbacks. It's not something he's been renowned to do, but because it was working, and as a system, the players within that system knew their jobs and it was going well, we kept it. Now we've had a few other little situations, and now there's been sort of a new reincarnation with Tielemans sort of playing as a 10, with Bailey playing off the right, and Cash has dropped out, Diaby's dropped out. So until there's a reason to stop playing like this, I think this will be the team again now for a while. So Cash I'd be a bit worried about. Bailey, I think, is one of those, a bit like Reece James. I think you're always sort of looking through your fingers that he might get injured at any moment. So while he's doing well, I think you get excited by him, but be aware that at any moment he's going to get injured. And have we got enough luxury right now to deal with that sort of problem?
So you mentioned you're concerned about Cash, and I mean, I can certainly see that against certain teams. For those of us that are holding Cash for game week 18 specifically, I keep looking at the tactics of that game, and it seems like a Cash game. You're going to play Konsa against friggin' Sheffield United. But I think you would know better. What's that? No,
Cash should play. We shouldn't need to play 3 centre-backs against 1 striker or whatever it's going to be at that point. It would make sense to play Cash that game and play an extra attacker, because Sheffield United don't. But again, I think he's a creature of habit. I think Emre, a little bit. If something's working and we're breaking teams down, even with the system and structure we've got right now, then so I don't think he'll change what's proven to be a successful formula. And at the moment, this is the formula that we've got that is scoring goals and is working.
It was working with Cash though, right? And he changed that.
Yeah, because everyone's basically shuffled around. McGinn was playing right midfield, and because he's left-footed, was drifting sort of central. It's a little sort of rotation and square around that side, because Kamara was dropping into the defensive line, Cash was then getting forward, and McGinn was coming inside. So the three moving parts all moved together in like a circle, and Cash was allowed to get forward like that. And it would make sense to play him outside of Bailey, because Bailey wants to come in from on his left foot, maybe into a more attacking position than what we're getting from McGinn, who is more likely to come into a central position rather than an attacking one. But Cash would still make sense as an outlet to get round him. And certainly against Sheffield United, I think we can take that opportunity to play 2v1 against the wing back. So I would do that, but
we don't know.
I wouldn't want to say I don't view him as one of the secure starters. It's the set I mentioned earlier, that 6 or 7 that I feel like can play every game if they're able to. Around that, the other 4 positions, there's about 8 or 9 players that could depend. Someone like McGinn, for example, plays in about 3 positions. So where he plays then has a knock-on effect on someone else and things like that. So if you want a safe Villa player right now, I'd probably have Pau Torres in defence. If you want a safe Villa midfielder, you probably have Douglas Luiz. And then there's obviously Ollie Watkins. That's the way I would view it, I think.
Yeah, and this takes me back to the beginning of the season, and that's the reason I didn't start with Cash this season, is because I thought he would rotate with Konza, and for the majority of the games, Emery would attack with the one fullback, and that would be Alberto Moreno. Not Alberto Moreno.
We haven't got him, unfortunately, not the old Liverpool guy.
Alex Moreno. That's right. And I thought it would be Alex Moreno, and Cash would be a rotation risk. So I guess we're kind of back to Emery's initial plan for the season. I still kind of think I have trouble moving Cash on now, because my guess, and I could totally be wrong, and Emery could just do something totally different. Just maybe Moreno plays against Sheffield United and he just wants to attack up the left, something like that. That could totally happen. But I think he would want 2 wing backs, a little bit of unpredictability against a deep block, while there's deep block. So, but definitely a risk. And then really quickly before we move on, I wanted to mention Arsenal. Let's get back to that Odegaard conversation, because Odegaard, so the first, like, I don't know, 6 to 8 games of the season, he was very much playing almost like next to Saka, up, like pushed high into that front line. Yeah. But I thought that role didn't serve him very well in terms of attacking production, and he needs to be freer to move between the lines. So now that he's playing deeper, I think my theory is, and that's why I highlighted him for this past game week. And my theory is that he's just more involved, and it's less he's more involved in between the lines and in spaces to kind of like connect players, and that opens. And then when he does connect players, that gets the pressure off of him, so defenders don't crowd him so much, because if they do crowd him, he'll send Saka through, or he'll whip the ball to the other side of Martinelli. So I think this deeper position actually does suit Odegaard. That being said, I don't like him, and I think Villa, you guys have one of the best, maybe my favorite central midfield pairing in Douglas Luiz and Boubacar Kamara, in the entire division. So, and I don't like Odegaard trying to find space around those guys. I think his involvement will be even deeper or somewhat limited if he is too far forward.
I quite like it if they give him a bit more of a floating role, because the problem with these Guardiola and Arteta systems is they're very rigid. It's all about zone coverage and making sure that there's people in a zone. It doesn't necessarily have to be a certain person, but that people's movements are based on zones and where other people are standing. And say the fact Havertz is now in the team over Xhaka playing higher, and he's clearly got a bit more freedom, Havertz, to drift. He's clearly someone that is told just to go and find some space wherever it is and then attack that space. And obviously that's been a problem for him for most of the season. He seems to be improving in that aspect, a couple of goals lately. So if he's got more freedom, then why can't Odegaard have more freedom, who's clearly the most creative player they've got in the middle of the pitch. So if there is signs that now he's being given that license, then that could be a good thing. Villa's midfield is really at risk against pace. So quick counter-attack pace. Arsenal don't really have that in their midfield. So yeah, I wouldn't think they'd get through, especially if we play Tielemans as well, who's a bit more defensive-minded than Diaby. If we got 3 in there almost, which is what we did against Man City yesterday, then that'll be quite hard to break down. So yeah, I don't see either team scoring a bucket load here. I think it'll be maybe 1-1. Someone might pinch it. Maybe Arsenal more so win 2-1 or something. Because we can be got at. Our defence can be pressurised, and like Jesus, I think probably one of the best players in the league for having that sort of dynamic attacking capabilities to be that sort of nuisance. And then Martinelli running in behind. I think Konsa will be quite good against him, to be fair. I trust Konsa a lot more against him than Cash, which is another reason why I think like Konsa might play right back in this game. So
especially if Bailey's ahead of him, right on the right wing.
Yeah, I can't see
Bailey's
him playing.
not going to come back.
I can't see him playing Cash and Bailey in this game. Maybe against Sheffield United, yes, but not in this game.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. You're getting some love here in the chat. I'm going to put it on. Kieran, FPL Discomfort. Love and Craig rocking the Tony Hack off center half tilt. Yo. Yeah. So good.
I'll leave it like that.
All right. Yes.
I thought I was going to get a critique more for the colour rather than the direction it was pointing. I thought the colour would.
Everton hosting Chelsea. Everton 1.24 NetxG. Chelsea 1.47. So nothing really good. Everton's left side lights up a little bit with 3.8 in the zonals, and the goal percentage shots matchup lights up for Everton as well. Certainly compared to Chelsea. It's just we can compare 3 or more goals. Everton have 20% chance of a 3 or more goals, where Chelsea just have a 12% chance of 3 or more goals at Goodison. Let's see. I didn't watch any of these games in midweek, so I'm going to defer to you here. You already mentioned Chelsea's midfield. How do you see Chelsea setting up in this one, given with the understanding that Everton have begun to kind of really rely more on their flanks, and Harrison is crossing for McNeil and vice versa? And so how do you see Chelsea dealing? Like, do you see Chelsea imposing themselves on this Everton team? Because I really don't. I see them being a little bit reactive.
I actually think of all the teams in the Prem, I know we've mentioned Bournemouth being quite hard to assess right now. I think Chelsea are even worse. I find them incredibly difficult to work out at the moment, which is not ideal considering this fixture run we're about to get from them, where we kind of want 2 or 3 of their players. But I don't really know where we stand with Chelsea. They're very unpredictable. This game, like I said earlier, the Chelsea got undone by Man United by physicality in midfield and just size in midfield. Now Everton are full of sort of dynamic, mobile, quite big midfield players. Decore, Anana, Gay, all these sorts of players. So Chelsea don't really have solutions to that. The squad's obviously a bit depleted at the moment. They've not got anyone who I would call a big physical presence in centre midfield. So if Everton are not a team to mess around with it at the back. So if Chelsea, they've got Gallagher back, obviously. But if he's going to try and initiate a press with others, I don't think Everton are going to fall into that. They'll just play direct. Pickford will quite happily look for Calvert-Lewin or something like that. And so if he can drift back onto Caicedo in midfield and get Decore around him and players like that, I think Everton will have quite easy access to the Chelsea half. Now, whether Everton are good enough to make use of it, they're obviously not the most reliable team for taking chances, are they, right now? They've quite a wasteful XG, I think, for most of the season. But the game state is there for Everton to kind of play in Chelsea's half here. And I say that they can then feed the ball wide and get crosses in, then there might be chances for them. So a Chelsea defender was going to be my move in until Bumo got injured. Because of this upcoming run, I was going to get Colwell in this week for Mark Guehi. I don't like Crystal Palace's fixtures coming up. And as an option, I had the option of Porro, I had the option of a Villa player, I had the option of Colwell. And I think he will still be good value. The fact he was captain yesterday makes me think his minutes are a bit safer now. But with Chelsea being so near the bottom of the XGC charts by the team I say this fixture doesn't really suit Chelsea either. I don't think. I can't get excited about bringing a Chelsea defender in for this one.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't know. Well, first, I don't know who's going to start. I don't know who's going to start or where they're going to start. I know Colwell will start, Captain Colwell, which is really cool that he got the captaincy. But Cucurella started on the right against United. Colwell started at left back, and I think Chelsea's or Everton's strength kind of lines up with Chelsea's weakness a little bit. So whereas Chelsea are quite solid centrally, right? Everton are going to get that ball wide and get that ball forward like all day, right? But you bring up a good point. Everton, let's see, they have at home, they have an XG of over 10.25, but they've only scored 5 goals from that. That's not a non-penalty XG. So they need kind of like 2 XG to get a goal. And I don't know that they get 2 XG here. So I could see on that front, I could see why you would want to bring in a Chelsea defender. And then on the other side, I was like, I'm not a believer in Chelsea. I think they still rely too much on individual moments. And they have players like Mudryk, right? Who show something, do have like individual moments to produce, but then they can't link that up with like an end product kind of thing. So the things just aren't connecting for Chelsea. I think this game is a hard to avoid from that perspective. I know someone in the chat said they have Mikolenko. Interesting pick. I mean, none of the defensive fixtures are very good this week, so I could see somebody starting Mikolenko. And then just a quick. What's that?
He might get an attacking return. I think for shots in the box from amongst defenders across the last 6 game weeks, he might even be top. I think so. He's clearly got license to get forward with Young playing a lot more defensive down the other side. So yeah, he's got a chance of getting a goal. So I'd play him.
And the way he combines with McNeil, and McNeil being one of the main chance creators of the team, I think really, I think that'll be a thing going forward. And he's a player I could bring in to sell Ben White for or something like that. So he's on my watch list. Just a side note here. Let's see. Fabianski starts today.
Interesting.
So that's and I've mentioned it on the show several times that Areola has never been a good keeper. He's been a career backup, and it's for a reason. So interesting that Flappy Hands is back, and we'll see if maybe he's motivated, maybe it gives him a boost. But we will get to that. I'm gonna move it on here. An hour and 18 minutes, so everything's fine. Everything's good. Fulham hosting West Ham. We're getting right into that. Fulham with the highest NetxG of the game week. I hope Combe is still in the chat, because Combe, obviously Fulham fan, he says I think he takes an issue that sometimes we don't speak so favorably about Fulham. Well, this is it, Combe. It's Fulham's moment in the sun. You guys better do well with it, or else I'm gonna have to wait to the NetxG for Fulham and just bring it down to below 1 every game week from now on. But West Ham 1.24, so no idea how that's going to happen. Most likely from a set piece, as is their custom. So Fulham, interesting that their data is carried a little bit by the creativity metric there. I'm gonna bring that creativity metric up a little bit. Look at the raw data. My guess is that it's big chances. Yeah, there it is. Fulham in their last 6 home matches, 15 big chances. So up there with the big chances. While West Ham, I'm guessing West Ham will concede. Yep, West Ham concede about 16 big chances per in their last 6. So we're looking at about a predicted 2.5 big chances for Fulham. And Combe can correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, the key for Fulham is really, well, there's 2 keys. You have the workhorse, which is Andres Pereira, and then you have the kind of like the puppeteer, which is Alex Iwobi. And I think Fulham's movement depends on Alex Iwobi, but their progression and their ability to win the ball back depends on Andres Pereira. But to get to West Ham here, I want to get your perspective, Craig. We talked about Bowen a little bit. I'd like to get your perspective on two things. One, Kudus as a budget Bowen option. If you say, look, the fixtures are good, but I don't want to invest that much money as much as a Bowen cost, maybe I'll go in for Kudus, sacrifice a little bit of potential, but still get in on the fixtures. That's the first question. And the second question is Thomas Souček as a 4.9 million enabler in midfield.
I'll just say no to Souček. he's not one for me. I can't give you a massively clear reason why either. He's just not someone that I've got any interest in owning. I didn't think he was in their best team till quite recently, but obviously they've shuffled it around a little bit, and now he's made himself a bit undroppable just by the fact he can get on the end of all the set pieces. Modern day Moran Fellaini, isn't he, for David Moyes? So just to get him up there and see what happens. Kudus, I'd compare to Leon Bailey a little bit. That I think he's more nailed than Leon Bailey, but someone out on the right can dribble a little bit, can take a player on, a little bit unpredictable, will have massive quiet moments, might even have a couple of games where he's quite quiet. But the fact that Brighton were quite heavily linked with him in the summer, I think appealed to me that obviously their scouting and player recruitment is very good. So that made me think that he was better than I initially believed he was. And then we're starting to get some returns off him now. A bit like I said about, I'm trying to think what team it was. It might have been Burnley when I was saying earlier that they tend to rely on one player to attack. I kind of feel like Kudus is quickly becoming that player for West Ham. That down the other side, they're obviously a bit narrow down the left. Paqueta plays narrow off the left side. They don't really start Benrahma down there. So attacking does tend to come down the right with Kudus and Soufal getting around the outside. And Bowen through the middle is not what I would call a natural striker. I compare him, this is going to sound like a really bad comparison. I don't mean it like this, but I compare him to Mo Salah a little bit, that he's a left-footed player that comes on the right, but his main focus is to score goals, to get in the box and shoot. He's not really someone that wants to play wide and take people on and dribble at people. He just wants to attack the box and score. Where Kudus is a bit more like a Leon Bailey or a Saka type winger, a bit more graceful, a bit more likely to run at someone, create something. Do I think Bowen's going to score enough goals with his skill set and his attributes? I'm not overly keen, to be honest. And West Ham don't seem to create loads from open play, which is where Bowen would be better, not from set pieces. Kudus is more likely to do something. But he's obviously off to AFCON as well, isn't he? So you got that with him as well, that in the near future he's gone. So I don't mind either. I think to tick a box and to fill a spot, I think both are fine. And I say at the moment, it's probably less midfielders than we initially think as owns. I think Kudus will be involved in a reasonable number of West Ham goals, but more likely to assist and score would be my gut feeling. It is a gut feeling, though. And Bowen is just unpredictable. If they feed him the ball enough, I think he will get goals. But I don't view him as like a natural striker, because he's now moving into a very crowded part of the game if he's playing more centrally. And I don't think he's necessarily got the skill set that flourishes when he's in tight spaces. His natural play is to be a bit wider where there's a bit more space, cut inside on his left foot and then sort of attack the box into more space, coming onto the ball. Where now he's not coming onto the ball so much and it's a bit busier for him. So, which is why I'm a little bit reluctant to get him. But I say compared to the alternatives, I've got a bit more trust in Bowen than someone like Sterling right now. So, Mbeumo's injury is really annoying because there's not a real standout, I don't think, here as a replacement for him.
Yeah, I get that. I'm going to say that there's one player I love in this fixture. And it's someone I've been recommending for a couple of weeks now, and it's Anthony Robinson. Anthony Robinson, if we look at the average position map for Fulham, that first average position map on the left-hand side, Anthony Robinson, not Anthony, is number 33. And he's right up there next to Willian, next to Andres Pereira. And we see like when Fulham can hold possession on the right side, Pereira and William will draw the attention of the defensive midfielder and the opposing right back. So I think Sofa will be on Willian. I think we'll have like Alvarez or one of the center backs occupied with Pereira. And since West Ham are so incredibly bad in open play, I think Fulham will be, and Fulham are home, I think Fulham will be able to get the possession that they need on the right-hand side to kind of create that movement to release Anthony Robinson into space. I'm not going to predict a goal, but I think he'll have some shots in this one because Fulham are so much better in open play. I think Combe is still in the chat because he's lightheaded, so he's feeling the love for Fulham for the first time this season on this show. Thanks for hanging in there with us.
Just need some consistency, I think, from Robinson. He's one of those footballers, to me, he looks like an athlete first and a footballer second. I'm not saying he's a particularly bad footballer, but his strengths are his athletic abilities. He's got good stamina. He's quite quick. He's very good for getting up and down that touchline. But when it comes to end product and consistent end product, and say he's okay, but I don't think we've ever really conceded.
He's Udogie. It's the same. He's Udogie when he gets around the box.
Yeah.
It's pretty messy, to be fair.
Yeah, maybe the situation is there for him in this particular game to have an impact. I quite like him as a player, to be honest. So I don't mind players like that. So I wouldn't be against him being involved.
Yeah.
I've looked at him a couple of times for my FPL team, I think. Whenever Fulham have a good run, I always look at him and think, oh, I could get him. And then I remind myself of why I don't like him, and I never do it. So
see, that's why. Did you play draft?
No.
That's why you play draft, man. You can get all these players. It's great.
Yeah.
I 2 game weeks ago, 3 game weeks ago, I brought in Jay Rodriguez, goals in back-to-back weeks. It's like that's the draft experience. So yeah, that's fun to do. Certainly not going to do it in regular FPL. All right, let's keep going here. An hour and 26 in. Is this the last one, or we have there's one more after this, right? Yeah, there's the Spurs game. So Luton hosting Manchester City. Luton 1.34 NetxG. So NetxG likes a goal for Luton here, favoring the left side with the creativity from Doughty. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, if it's Doughty or Doughty.
Completed 4 passes, I think, in a game against Arsenal, by the way, and he got 2 assists. So I don't know how much creativity we'll get from him, because if he only touches the ball 4 times, but made good use of those 4 touches.
Is he like the Holland of creativity?
Yeah, I think he took a couple of corners. I'm not sure he touched the ball outside of taking some corners, but there we go.
That's it. That's all he needs. Manchester City 1.8 NetxG with a central matchup, a whopping 5.1 with the shots goal predictor there, like off the charts as well. 50% chance of 2 or more goals for City. Do you see City, like, the one thing I want to highlight a couple of things. Look at City's average position map before subs.
Yeah,
they barely get past half. There's like Foden's there and Rico Lewis, and that's
too many defenders, right? Too many defenders in the team.
Yeah, exactly. And then they made subs, and it didn't change much. If somebody sent me the pass map for Manchester City against you guys, and it's something that you might want to frame. It's a thing of comical beauty. But so we see the central zonal matchup there lighting up. I mean, we don't have to get too much into City. I would like to get your thoughts on 1, Holland for captain, and 2, who could emerge as the secondary option in this one for Manchester City.
This is quite pivotal, actually, because I've not completely, as much as I've spoken about possibly bench boosting in game week 17, I've also not completely written off a free hit in game week 18. I know it's been spoken about a little bit within the community. And one of the reasons, I already own Ireland and Alvarez, so I've got 2 of them. Could I go for the triple up, knowing they've got Luton here and then Crystal Palace next week, who also at the moment look a bit open. So it's probably Foden, but he's played a lot of minutes lately, and obviously Grealish has had a decent rest and is now back. I don't know how severe what's happened to Doku is. He's quite important to them because he offers something 1v1 that a lot of the other attackers don't. A lot of the players are safe players, aren't they? Keep the ball, very technically good. recycle the ball, look for a killer through pass. But again, Doku's their one sort of exception who will run at someone 1v1, beat them, and sort of create something in that way. So I think they'll play Doku in quite a lot of games if he's fit now. So if he's available soon, I don't know if he'll quite make this game. So I don't know what he did in the Liverpool match that meant he went off. But he's probably the one long term. When people start going to AFCON and Asia Cup and things, sort of game week 20, 21 sort of time, Man City have got Sheffield United around that sort of fixture block. And if we're looking at Man City players for that point, I think someone like Doku will be the obvious replacement for a Son if we sell him when he goes to the Asia Cup. Whether we can take that risk now, if we were doing it now, I'd probably get Foden. And I imagine he'll be back on the right side for this game, which I think will suit him a bit more than he played down the left against Villa. And historically, he's been quite good down the left, but he didn't get much change out of Ezri Konsa. Maybe he'll be better down the right where he can link with Walker, because that's what they did against Villa a little bit, Man City, that Walker was the spare player because McGinn was playing quite narrow down the left. The space was really there for Walker to attack, but it's not really his skill set, is it? He can carry the ball forward a bit, but he's not great with use of the ball. If he's got Foden around him in this game, maybe that'll improve. So he's probably the one I'd put up for this game would be Foden, assuming that he plays right midfield. But I don't think we can completely guarantee that.
All right. I'm having some audio issues here, so I'm gonna try to. Is the sound still okay right now?
Yeah. For me.
Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can keep it okay for a little bit while I fix this. Yeah, and I think Foden especially if he's on the left hand side, could come up with something. But I think this is going to be a case of just like overpowering and just kind of Holland overpowering others, and he's likely my captain. We'll get to the captaincy metric in just a moment, but I don't think we need to spend too much time on this one. Obviously, you're probably not investing in Manchester City assets at the moment because of the blank coming up. Obviously, if you have them, you play them. I still own this, and I just can't get rid of them now with the Mbumo injury and with my problems in defense. I have triple Arsenal defense going up against you guys, for fuck's sake. I don't know what I'm doing FPL, obviously. So cool, fair enough. Let's we'll go into the next one. I'm gonna keep messing with my sound here, see if I can get audio in my ears so it's not coming out of my laptop and maybe bothering everybody. As we do, final fixture, hour and a half in. We're definitely on track for an hour and 45-minute time frame, that goal that we had set at the beginning of Spurs hosting Newcastle 1.74 NetxG, Spurs 1.58. Spurs, all the zonals are kind of lighting up there. Not so great for Newcastle, but Newcastle has the kind of big chance matchup, right? This is a fascinating one. I'm really looking forward to this match. How do you see this one?
Yeah, awkward. I'll talk about it from a Pedro Porro perspective, because he's the defender that I thought I wanted most for this next batch of games. And the fact he's taking set pieces now with Maddison out, the fact he's quite attacking at the moment when we can't trust clean sheets from anyone right now, makes me feel like he's a good own. But I can't see, this has got to be both teams to score, isn't it, this game? If there's a game this week that's I know Newcastle defensively have been pretty good. And I say I've got Dubravka and Lascelles in my team, so I'm not sure if I'm playing both yet. But it feels like a both teams to score sort of game. Tottenham just play the same way against everyone. It doesn't seem to matter which players are in what position. It doesn't seem to slow them down too much. So I really can't see a game they don't score. Newcastle, I think XG-wise, are among the best in the league. And I think they can press Tottenham's midfield here. Lascelles, I actually think, does help Tottenham from that standpoint, because I think he's quite good at sort of evading the press. So he may be the pivotal player in this game to help get them out, because Newcastle will just try and swamp them in their own final third, won't they? Can Tottenham find that player, the old sort of Moussa Dembele type player that can evade the press and sort of and if they can get through that first phase of press, then they're sort of running at the Tottenham backline, then there's the Newcastle backline, then there's opportunities for them. So I think the game quite a lot revolves around him, Lascelles. If he doesn't really get in the game and run the game and have that sort of impact on the game, then I think Newcastle could probably win this. But Yeah, I think it'll be quite close. I don't really see either team running away with it, and I think both teams will probably score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Lo Celso is good for ball progression, progress the balls through the lines and stuff like that. But I think Newcastle central midfield is up there with yours. So I see Lo Celso maybe struggling in this one, struggling to keep the ball and actually do anything with it. I keep saying I think Spurs need to lean more on Pedro Porro. Instead of trying to play through the middle through Lo Celso and stuff like that. I think getting Porro involved, but in order to do that, you need your six to cover for him, rather than play through them. But if Spurs send, the problem with sending Pedro Porro, I mean, even if you don't send Pedro Porro forward, he's not a great defender, right? So Anthony Gordon could blow right past him. So I think there's a really nice game for Anthony Gordon, and I would just love to see kind of like that whole flanks. Spurs is right and Newcastle's left. I kind of see most of the game being played over there. Yeah, and even like on that side, Livramento could get involved and kind of like try to pin Porro back, but I know a lot of people are thinking about bringing Pedro Porro in. I'm not, and it's mostly because I don't trust Spurs clean sheets, and I don't trust Ange to get Porro involved as much as he needs to be. I don't think he's been involved nearly as much as he should have been recently. So that puts me off of him a little bit here.
It'll be a big challenge for him against Gordon. Gordon's been a real handful against quite a lot of teams. He obviously got Reece James sent off the other week, but he's got he can go both ways. He's quite capable coming inside, going outside. His work rate's phenomenal. You don't really get an easy game against him just because he's on you all game, Gordon. He's always pressing, he's always harassing, chasing, and he presents, say, a wide player with the ability to go both directions against you is a real handful. There's actually fewer of them than you think. Someone like Matoma, Saka, players like that, the better ones go both ways and not so predictable. Where the likes of Foden, they always want to come inside onto the left, that you can kind of manage them. Someone like Gordon, I think, is a lot harder to manage because you don't quite know which way he's going to go. So I'm not saying Ange will make Porro a more defensive player in this game, because I don't think that's the system he plays. But it might make sense to in this game because that's the big threat. I think that's in terms of a matchup within a game, that might decide this. I think Lo Celso's got a big role in terms of ball progression and press evasion in midfield with Joe Linton and things getting on his case. But whoever gets the better of that Porro versus Gordon matchup is probably going to be that's the one that could ultimately decide the game, I think.
Well, and that's why I think I don't think Porro has what it takes to deal with Gordon, because Gordon has so many things, including that pace. Very few wingers have like the dribbling ability and that pace to match. Like Gordon's way faster than Matoma, if I'm not mistaken. So I would actually put like I'd put like Yves Bissouma, for example, make him cover Gordon's runs. I don't know if Sarr will play. Maybe Sarr can cover Gordon's runs, and then you can release Porro a little bit. And yes, you'll get scored on most likely, but maybe you'll have more of an attacking threat if you do. It'll be anyway. These are all just the kind of like ideas. It'll be interesting to see what Ange actually does with this. In this one at least. Let's see. If you guys have questions, please get them in there. For clean sheets. Just looking at seeing if I missed any questions now. I have starred several of them. And let's see what. Whoops, that's the captaincy metric. I got to play the jingle first. Before we get to the captaincy metric, just another quick ask for likes. Smash that like button. And if you're waiting to see who the captain is, maybe you've already seen it, maybe you'll smash it. Indeed, Erling Haaland comes out on top. We have Haaland coming in at 95. Mbomo Porumbumo with his ankle coming in at 93. Those are really the top 2 options for this game week. The rest are a little ways behind. We have Watkins next at 87. Jeremy Doku with a flash appearance here at 81. Then Julian Alvarez still hanging out up there. Then we're getting into the Bruno Fernandes territory. I don't know what Isak and Salah are doing below them.
People that like Crystal Palace, right?
Yeah, sometimes Mariners metrics go a night on the town and they come back and they're all wonky. So I think that's what's Fernandez doing.
They're very close, aren't they? 76, 77. There's not much in it, to be fair. It looks low, but he's in that general ballpark, isn't he, with a lot of the other ones?
And Mariner likes, when he's on the show, and he will be back next week, he likes to mess around with the values there. And if you increase, obviously Isak's minutes are low because he had been injured. If you increase Isak's minutes, like let's say to 70 or 80, he would surely jump up, maybe even get as high as Jeremy Doku. It's just so weird. But the boys got the stats.
Fernandes is so high though, because he's one of the people I could get in midfield for Mbuemo. So the fact he's ranked so highly there has immediately interested me.
And imagine how much, like, if he had one haul, and so this is based off of data from the last 6. If he'd have just one haul in that time, he'd probably be up there close to Watkins. So I get it, but I think, I mean, I think when you suggest a Manchester United asset, I have a similar response as to when I suggest a West Ham asset to you.
I've already owned Bruno Fernandes for 9 game weeks and not got any points off him, so I don't really want to go back there again either. I've got that sort of in my mind as well.
Yeah, same. Do let us know in the chat who you're captaining. Are you captaining Holland, Craig?
Yes, mate.
Yeah. Okay. So
it's Luton, right?
Pretty simple there.
What's that? The best striker in the league against one of the 3 worst teams. It's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it?
Well, yes, and hold on, let me bring this up. They are away. Manchester City. So Manchester City have generated 24 big chances away this season, or in the last 6. So that's what, 4 big chances a game. They've scored 8 of them. So if I want to be equitable, right, and I'm ridiculing Darwin Nunez for missing big chances, I got to apply the same thing to Holland a little bit here. Nobody misses more big chances than Erling Haaland.
16 or so, isn't it, this season? I think he's missed.
Yeah. So I think that's the one knock. Now, obviously, if you've watched Haaland for any amount of time, you know he'll do this, and then he'll just start scoring the big chances, and then it's just like explosion after explosion after explosion. So you kind of can't take the risk, and you know Haaland will kind of come back around, but he's not in great form. He knows it, but still, I think he's an easy captain show here. Let's see what's next here. All right, I guess that does it for the show. Before we do get to the thank yous, let's go to some questions. So leave your questions in the chat. Let's see. I'm just looking to see if I missed any here, and then I'll bring them up. We'll get to them and go for them kind of quick fire because we are an hour and 43 minutes in. And while we go through these, I will just got to bring up the Discord ones, and we'll get going. Start with Ignatius. It's not a question, but he says the return of Big at the back. What do you think? Is it the return of Big at the back? We have Trippier. Newcastle's fixtures are going to turn. We have Trent, who scored 25 points in the last two games.
50 something in 6, I think. Is it 55 in 6 or something? I think he's got. Yeah,
6. Easy.
Not for me. There's not enough clean sheets, I don't think, at the moment. So, and both those teams have got second choice goalkeepers, right? Which doesn't fill me with great confidence either. So, not yet. Maybe wait till AFCON when we get a load of money from selling Salah and Son and stuff. Maybe we can look at it again then. But I won't be tearing my team up now, I don't think, to fund those 2 in particular.
Right. I think it's good to have one of them. I think probably good to have one of them in the coming weeks.
I'd prioritize Trippier, I think, if I was going to prioritize one over the other.
Yeah, probably. Clint says, I have cash and Mbumo problem. Yeah, who doesn't? Want to do cash to Porro and transfer Mbumo out, but don't know for who. Only one free transfer. We have covered this quite extensively. We've given several options for this. I think the other one that we just hinted and didn't go too much into detail on is cash down. Maybe a Jedi Robinson and Mbumo up if you need to get to Saka, or you want to go Luis Diaz, or you want something like that. But I think in general, for most people, that transfer down makes sense, down to Palmer, down to Gordon. If you have both of those, you can go cheaper. We've mentioned several of those as well. So I think we'll move on. This is a good one from Ignatius Brian. Thoughts on Garnacho as an option? We did mention him a little bit. He tried another bicycle kick. Feeling confident.
They just can't keep Rashford out of the team for long. Are they going to make a point of him the same way they did with Ronaldo, Ten Hag? Is he going to be the next sort of person to sort of target in this way? My feeling is Rashford will be back in the team soon. And once Rashford's back in the team, Garnacho is probably the one that gets reduced minutes because of it. I think Rashford and Anthony would still be first choice. I don't hate it if you need that sort of budget covered, but he's not better than Palmer or Gordon, is he? I don't think.
No.
I'd probably pick Would you pick Souček over Garnacho? They're about the same price, aren't they?
Souček's 4.9. Garnacho, I think, is 4.6. I would pick Souček over Garnacho.
Yeah. Not seen enough output from him apart from one overhead kick to make me think he's really an option yet.
Yeah, I agree. Clint, guys, what do we think of this Solanke form? Is it worth investing into? Not had good luck with him in the past. We did talk about him a little bit. The past couple, his goal involvement has dropped significantly as the team has gotten better, and I think that's the main concern, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think he's a lot of money for a third striker if you also have 5 midfielders. I think if you're going to pick him as a second striker with Haaland or something for now, then fine. But I wouldn't want Haaland, Watkins and Solanke, for example. And then I think it's too much to spend on a third striker as a sort of a rotating 8th attacker. You can have obviously Edouard or Cunha or someone like that if you wanted someone better than Archer, even Semenyo. I think depends what role he fills in your squad. I'd probably rather save the money and go Semenyo for 2 million less, I think, because at least you feel like you can bench Semenyo. I think Solanke you want to play at that price.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Good point. And that actually brings us to the next one. You're talking about a cheap replacement there for Archer. How about Big Neil? Wow. Is he on pens? Neil Maupay.
Fair question, actually. Who's on pens? I don't actually know the answer to that for Brentford right now. Could be a useful spot for someone, right? Will Wissa take him? You imagine Wissa.
Yeah, it could be Wissa. I don't know actually. I don't know Wissa's penalty taking history. I bet only probably Libero knows. I bet he knows that off the top of his head. The freak. But I couldn't do it myself. But I would have respect for if somebody brought Maupay in, and actually Lucien, FPL teacher, he's recommended Maupay, and I think he recommended him last week and he scored. So I don't know.
It's a lot easier recommending someone. It's a bit harder to actually bring them in, right? I can recommend 300 people. I'm going to bring them in.
Totally. No, I recommended Leon Bailey this past game week and it worked out. And there's no way in hell I brought him in.
Yeah, no, not for me. Maupay. I think you can do better than that. But
okay.
Yeah, keep an eye on the penalty taker. I don't know who that is.
It could be interesting if he's the penalty taker, though. Last question from the chat here, and looks like we might have a couple more coming in. Clint says, you mentioned Brennan Johnson there really quickly. Is he really an option?
Yeah, because Tottenham play in a way that scores goals, right? And at the moment, I feel like he's got that spot on the left. I know Richarlison's just come back now. He's on the bench, I think, for the weekend. Not sure what the team is tonight. I haven't seen the lineup since we've been talking. But for his price, I think we saw at Forest, he's got good goal threat. He's got an attacking role in the team. He's quite cheap. What is he, about 6 million? I think something like that. I don't hate it. And Tottenham obviously have got the best fixture, well, one of the best fixtures in game week 18. if we're looking to have one eye on that, I don't think many people are going to get to 3 Tottenham players in that game week. So if that helps you get towards that sort of possibility, Nottingham Forest next week, a team in a bit of chaos right now, you could get 2 good game weeks out of Brendan Johnson and then reassess.
Yeah, I don't mind the shout either. Let's see. Here's a good question. If you don't have Holland, who do you cap?
Ooh. Yeah. Has he got any Man City players? You have to captain a Man City player. He's got Alvarez instead. If it was away from Man City, who would I captain then? Oh dear. I might even consider captaining Matoma, against Burnley. I'm in terms of which team's going to score the most goals this game week, I'd put Man City and Brighton as the 2 most, in my eyes, the most likely to score 4 or 5. So if I'm following that logic, I'd probably say a Brighton player if you've got one Matoma, but obviously his minutes are not secure.
Bring the summary up here. Yeah, so the highest according to NetxG, Brentford obviously that's who we're selling. Brighton 1.78. So there you go. Fulham, Fulham is highest. Man City obviously. Newcastle. I'm thinking Gordon.
Away.
Porro up against Porro.
It's matchups, one of the stronger ones, but
I'm gonna say AG. I'm gonna say Captain AG. Anthony Gordon.
Okay, I'll go for. We'll see who's right next week. I'll go Matoma.
Okay, Matoma versus Gordon. Let's go. Let's see. Mbomo to Johnson. Yep, just spoke about that. That's a very decent one. Oh, interesting. What are your thoughts on Gross?
Such an awkward player, isn't he? He played fullback yesterday and got a goal and an assist. So it doesn't seem to matter where he plays. You get put off by him because you think he might play in too much of a defensive role, but he still manages to pop up. I think he's just a bit too unreliable for me. I think there's players with a lot more upside and certainly a lot more goal threat. Now he's a bit like Ward-Prowse in the sense that he'll probably be involved. He's got decent chance of assists like game to game, but you'll probably get a run of 7-8 blanks off him and then he'll go and get 2 attacking returns in an unexpected game. And do you want to be having those players in your team? Say for a similar price, there's lots of other players with way more goal threat than that. Why would you have Gross over Gordon, for example, right now, or something like that? You can't.
Yeah, and I don't think Gross is particularly cheap, right? He's probably.
I think he's started at 6.5. I think 6.5 is what he started.
Wow.
So he must be somewhere around that.
Yeah. So that. What's that? Yeah, right up Kudus. Yeah. But one thing I will say, and we didn't mention this about Brighton, it's interesting that their 2 makeshift fullbacks, Jack Hinchelwood and Pascal Gross, were the ones that scored. And if you look at Gross's heat map from the game too, it's basically a Stupinian. I wonder if Gross kind of sits there and plays that a Stupinian role, and if Brighton can reignite that left side with Gross and Matoma, then I think they could be something to look at there. Let's see. Clint comes in again. Would you prioritize Mbomo out this week over Cash?
Yeah, only because we know when Brumo's out and there's not an obvious replacement for Cash in my eyes this week. So you move in to someone with an equally bad fixture, I would say, if you sell Cash. Unless you're priced out of a defender you desperately want in the future, like a Porro or something, then I wouldn't rush to do that this week.
Yeah, so I agree with you there. Let's see. On Discord, when do we have the conversation? Are any Man City assets value for money? It comes in from Blonde. They haven't been lately. I'm just not the type of manager that'll go without Holland.
No, same.
So yeah. And the fixtures get so good after the blank. They're so good.
I think Doku will become an option soon. And Akanji is still 4.9. Now, I know City's defence at the moment is a bit up in the air and a bit unreliable, but that's super cheap for a team that will probably be one of the better defensive teams in the league. So one to have on your radar, maybe you want to think about going to him. Same reason people went to Gabriel, right? Just a cheap way into a good defense. Akanji could be the same.
Right on. So that was Blonde. We have a couple more. Don Black Dragon says, looking at next 3 to 4 game weeks, has Cash lost his place? Best replacement other than Newcastle and Arsenal? Which team players? I think we've covered this one a couple times here, Dom. So go back and check that out. And then Sebastian Koo, Garnacho and Solanke. Which one to bench this game week? Garnacho.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Really quickly, a couple more coming in here. Clint, Areola seems like he's injured, so I have no keeper. I have Turnerola. Should I take a -4? Yeah, get Dubravka.
Yeah.
Super quick fire to get out of here under 2 hours. Colm, I would take a -4 for a goalkeeper stop, but that's just me. Oh, he's responding to that. And that's it. We're done. No more questions.
If you don't want Dubravka, get to Sanchez, so it's the other answer. I think at least he plays.
Oh, and maybe Bentley as well.
Yeah,
nice goalkeeper option. He played fantastic. So we did it. We set a target for under 2 hours at the beginning of the show, and here we are, hour and 55 minutes. Great success, Craig. Thank you so much, man.
No
Thanks for filling in, man. It's great person to have on. Great conversations. Really appreciate it, brother.
No problem. Anytime.
And we will take you up on that. So so do come back. Join us in the chat next week. Mariner will be back with some evil laughs and ranting. He's hating life in FPL right now. So what else is new? If he survives the week.
I maybe should have done my giggling a bit louder. I could have not that I can be another Mariner, obviously, but I could have fulfilled that void that not having him around we lose.
Yeah, we needed you to step up a little bit, but you're still a newbie here, and you'll get in the swing of things there, Craig. But seriously, thank you everybody for the chat. Really cool to see you all. Really great chat as always. The chat in itself is like content. I want to take that chat and package it and send it out everywhere. You guys are all kind of like content creators there in the chat, at least for me anyway, as I'm going to write the matchups thread and post it as soon as possible. But hour and 57. Thanks so much. Thank you in the chat. And if I can get this part right, we will. Peace.